So Boris Johnson is proposing a national insurance rise to pay for social care. As a socialist, I'm certainly not against higher taxation to cover any necessary costs, things any of us may rely on in the future. But who is actually paying here? And more importantly, who isn't? The Tories plan to raise national insurance to pay for the increasing cost of social care, according to numerous reports, and to do so, they'd be breaking not one, but two manifesto commitments they made going into the 2019 general election. Not only were national insurance increases ruled out, but they clearly stated they had a plan for social care at the time, a plan Boris Johnson had refused to set out then, has refused to set out for 2 years now. The utter waste of oxygen, stood on the steps of Downing Street after election and repeated the lie that he'd fix social care. He probably pissed himself laughing after the door closed behind him. And with this latest announcement, it would seem that this social care plan really was a pack of lies from a career liar. So they've broken a pledge or two. Big deal, you might think. I'm busy. I haven't time to be worried about you and your leftish whinging because social care needs paying for after all. And you'd be right. It does need paying for. However, the fact that Tories will say stuff to get elected and then not mean it should be a concern to us all. That manifesto pledges are not binding is a problem in the UK because it betrays trust when they break them, wrecks faith in our electoral system. It's acting in bad faith on the part of those doing it and ends up promoting apathy amongst voters, which is bad for democracy. But, you're busy. Well, they're busy too, rigging the system against you, and there's more coming down the road. But I'm not going to get into that right now and not into these particular issues here and now. The issue I'm going to focus on here is social care. It needs to be paid for, and this is how the Tories are thinking of finally doing it. Unless, of course, they don't and just use the money for something else. That trust issue, it doesn't go away. Now, many of you will be familiar with the fact that national insurance contributions show up on your payslip, along with income tax, and these are both deductions you pay anyway. Many of you might not begrudge paying a bit more, and yes, I would agree with that. However, the choice to charge more national insurance and not, say, more income tax is a relevant one because of who it actually affects. National insurance is paid by businesses, the self-employed, and employees who earn over £9,568 a year, and it goes to pay for certain social security benefits like the state pension, statutory sick pay, maternity leave, and gives you an entitlement to additional unemployment benefits should you need them. It is supposedly an insurance policy against ill health and falling on hard times, hence the name. But it is basically just another tax. Now, £9,568 a year is not a lot. You start paying national insurance when you could be earning as little as £797 a month, a really low wage. And that matters if you're going to be asked to pay more of it to pay for social care. All while your energy bills are rising, your rent is rising, food prices are rising, if you can actually find what you want these days. And now they want to hit you with this too. They really do hate the poor. If you're self-employed, it's even worse. You start paying national insurance on profits of just £6,515 a year. That's just £540 a month. Now, income tax, on the other hand, doesn't start to be charged until you're earning over £12,500 a year. So you can see this national insurance hike would be targeting the very poorest paid people in the country. People in work, but the poorest paid. Hardly the sort of people you imagine that should be paying extra for social care in a fair society. They're scraping just to get by and finding it harder by the day. Now, because it goes to pay for your state pension, when you reach state pension age, you stop paying it. However, that doesn't necessarily mean you've retired. You may keep working, but you still stop paying national insurance at age 66. So whereas the poorest paid, and this typically is the youngest workers on the crappiest levels of minimum wage anyway, would face an increased national insurance cost to pay for social care, the oldest workers, those aged over 66, still in work, haven't retired, wouldn't pay it at all and would not contribute whatsoever to the increased cost of social care. And that's true regardless of how much they earn. The other ridiculous thing about national insurance is if you earn more than £827 a week, that's over £43,000 a year. The level of national insurance drops from 12% of earnings to just 2%. So if you're on a very nice wage above this level, are pretty well off, all things considered, the less of a percentage of your earnings are taken through national insurance. So far, it's looking like a bit of a scumbag move, isn't it? I'm not finished yet. National insurance is also only charged on earnings. If you rent property out, you don't get charged it on the money you make. If you own a business and get an annuity from that, you don't get charged for the money you make. If you're rich and have lots of lovely investments bringing in lots of lovely cash for you, you don't get charged for the money you make. All in all, national insurance itself is actually a really unfair tax because of who it targets and how they're targeted. Therefore, to raise this particular tax to pay for social care is a political move by utter bottom feeders. It's seriously regressive as it compounds that inbuilt inherent unfairness. It discriminates against the poorest pay. It discriminates against the youngest workers. It's a generational attack. It's an attack on the young because it is not a proportionate tax across all ages in society. Raising the needed revenue with an increase on income tax would be far fairer across all demographics. All revenue streams would be based on actual income and not discriminate against you based on age and earnings. It would be charged against older, better paid workers more rather than attacking the poorest paid and the youngest in work. But the big but here is the point that needs to be hammered home again and again on all things to do with this kind of thing, that the most unfair aspect of our society when it comes to income and wealth is that the very wealthiest people in society, the UK's billionaires, who added £100 billion to their wealth last year, more wealth than they could possibly spend in their lifetimes. That is a huge sum. Let's say it again. It is in addition to what they already have. No matter what they spend, therefore, they never even dent their capital. They can therefore afford to pay more than anyone else without any impact to their daily lives whatsoever. And yet a wealth tax to address the rampant inequality in this country never gets addressed by this government. The playing field needs to be leveled, but with a government more intent on taxing the youngest and poorest workers into poverty and an opposition party leadership incredulously still calling itself Labour, spending the entire weekend hand-wringing over whether to oppose this blatant attack on the youngest workers and the poorest workers. Newsflash, Starmer, you mug, it's bloody obvious. What the hell has taken you so long to come around? What chance is there of that?